It is expected to be completed in 2021. So with a little bit luck, when the Queen will celebrate her 100th birthday, you should be able to sip a gin and tonic from your room and see her waving from the balcony.
Okay. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 6 of the Smack Hospitality Cast. For this episode, we spoke to Gregor Andreewitch, who is the current GM of the Waldorf Astoria Berlin, and he talked to us about Hilton, loyalty programs, life as a GM, especially in Berlin, and what it takes to be a GM in the future. Enjoy the show. Okay, Gregor, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. I'm going to start with the very obvious and the very easy question. Would you, for those of us that don't know about your vita, would you quickly run us through the last stations of your GM career and how you got to the Waldorf Astoria here in Berlin?
Okay, it's a great pleasure. Thank you for having me on this show. I've been working for Hilton all my working life. This is close to 40 years. And Hilton is now 18 different brands. And prior to Berlin, I worked in the Conrad Hotel in Tokyo. Prior to that, at the Drake in Chicago, and before that in London. The reason I came to Berlin, it happened in Shanghai during an award ceremony when I received the Best Hotel of the Group Award in 1913. And the president from Europe, Mr. Simon Vincent, asked me over the dinner table, "Do you speak German?" And this was my kiss of death. And a day later, I was told there's a fantastic opportunity here in Berlin, and I decided to come here. And very happy to have come here nearly 6 years ago on October 3rd, 2013.
You said the award ceremony was in 1913. I hope you mean
1913. 1913.
Okay.
Sorry, 1913.
Okay, but I'm sure you mean 2013, no?
2013. Yes,
absolutely
right.
We got that. We got the numbers.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Gregor, if you look at the stations that you've been in, and it's not hard to tell that you're a veteran of the Hilton GM positions, multiple brands, like you just said. Give me a brief comparison to Berlin, which you've been here for a couple of years now. You've I'm sure you've come around the vibe of the city, what makes the 5-star industry, which I believe is probably not the easiest one in Berlin, and what makes it tick. Compare that for me to some of your stations before, in like you said, in Asia and in the US.
Generally speaking, business in London, in the US and in Asia is more predictable.
Okay.
You have historical data, you can plan your business ahead, you can forecast accurately, and this is something what is extremely difficult for all 5-star hotels in Berlin, because you have ups and downs and nobody really knows where the downs come from. You have a couple of seasons a year where you have fairs, you have exhibitions, you have conventions, you have meetings, and you have other times of the year where it really gets very, very quiet, more quieter than in other comparable world cities, and that makes it very, very difficult. In addition to that, Berlin enjoyed the famous slogan "We are poor and sexy," and this was said by the former mayor of town, and this may be very cool, but really hasn't helped the hotel industry because everybody thinks that luxury doesn't need to be expensive, and they hope to find this in Berlin. In addition to that, I know since yesterday that Berlin has 800 hotels and 150,000 rooms. So it is a very, very competitive environment, particularly in the 5-star and 5-star plus regional segment.
My question specifically is because you're in that 5-star segment, and you've seen it. If you go to London or some of the major cities in the US, there's an instant rate which you're aware. If you're going for a 5-star property, that's probably you're going to pay from there upwards. In Berlin, I remember we talked about this when we first met each other many years ago. I remember one of the first things you told me was, I can't believe what I'm seeing here. I've seen single rooms in a 5-star hotel and I'd go for 99 euros a night. How is this possible? How has that experience been for you, and can you without obviously wanting the trade secrets of the Waldorf Astoria, but can you give me a tip or two, or maybe an idea or two of what you and the city have been doing kind of to try and get somewhere to a respectable rate?
The easy answer would be that every hotel in town raises their rate by 30 euros, but it has to start at the bottom. It is very difficult to get every people sort of organized, similar to the airlines. They do it a much better job. It's actually even illegal to talk about rates amongst each other. But the tendency is that people break all rules and all logic sometimes in order to attract another piece of business. And as we are not measured by the average rate, but by the revenue per available rooms, so it's the combination of occupancy and rate, this is actually the real marker in our industry. And that's what we work for. They have the right combination of occupancy at the right rate. But the rates here are probably half of London, half of Paris, half of New York, and significantly lower than Hamburg, Frankfurt, or Munich.
Yeah. When looking at the Berlin market and the hotel market, it has been growing for years constantly. Do you see that increase of supply also affecting your rates and your competition? And how do you see Berlin as a market evolving in the next few years?
Not necessarily. We're growing little and little year on year. I mean, Berlin as a town, as a city in the 5-star segment, grows by 1 to 2% on RevPAR a year. We have done a little bit better, but we're at a lower base to start off with. It is very, very competitive in the 3 and 4-star market as well, because they have really a huge supply of rooms. The growth in the 5-star market hasn't been that big, but neither been the demand, I must say, because Berlin is just different. It takes different, and that's an issue. You have very few large corporations here that give you enough business travel, that give you a good corporate base. So you're relying on tourism and transient business, on meetings and conventions. And in that segment, we're competing with the other famous cities in Europe. This is Vienna, London, Paris, Barcelona, just to name a few.
So you think as a city like Berlin needs to also have perhaps more convention centers, or to be able to attract more international trade shows visitors? Do you think that will bring another boost to the market?
Maybe not a convention center, but the existing facilities need to be reworked. What is a problem? Because you have the City Cube and you have the fairgrounds that have been inactive for some time, and the politicians are not quite sure what to do with it or how to develop these areas. A huge benefit will be eventually once the new airport is open. This should happen in October next year. Actually, I believe it will happen. We then need the confidence of the large airlines to start intercontinental flights to Europe, because this will make a huge difference. Flying now to the Middle East, what is a big market for Europe, it is a 10-hour trip, versus from Frankfurt and Munich, you're then 6 hours, because there's no direct flights, just as an example.
When you came to Berlin, Gregor, and you saw all of the, I'm going to say it politely, the mess that Berlin was in at the time and still is to some extent. If you think about the fact there's effectively no functioning intercontinental airport, the rates are what they are to some extent in the 5-star hotel. The competition is somewhat, renowned in Berlin. The 2 or 3 properties in the 5-star segment that have been here for decades that obviously had the name for it. What was your initial thought must have been, God damn it, what did I get into? And can you tell me how your thought process has kind of developed since then with the challenges that you accepted, which must have been huge at the time?
Yes, this is correct, but that's exactly what I enjoy, to turn around difficult situations. In addition to that, the Waldorf Astoria, the hotel that is built in the heart of the city west, was surrounded by building sites wherever you looked.
Yeah, true.
So every area you looked at, you had a building site, you had a crane, all the subway exits have been renovated, so it was really not a nice picture. Yeah. In addition to that, you had noise from building sites, you had dust, you had dirt, so it was not an attractive area. This has completely changed and has basically started a renaissance in the area. You see many new buildings, all office space is sold out, new shops came into the market, and the city west with the Kurfürstendamm and KaDeWe really enjoy a tremendous boom recently. So this is the local area. The remaining city is climbing year by year. There are more and more visitors coming. I think this year will be growing by nearly 3.2% on 33 million overnight stays. And this does not include Airbnb. So inclusive of Airbnb, the estimates are 40 million room nights into Berlin. And this is with Paris together the number 2 in Europe, following behind London.
Let me ask you a more broader question now. Go away from kind of the Berlin scene of that. You live Hilton with every bone in your body, and I have to ask this because if I look at like the hotel and hospitality press in the last couple of years, Hilton wasn't necessarily on top of the press listings of what got attention, and yet the company is doing as well as ever been. It's, depending on the figures that you check, it's the biggest hotel company in the world these days. Yet, the Marriott Starwood merger, Accor buying everything that's around. Those were kind of the companies that were on top of the press list. Give me your thought on that. And from a Hilton perspective, has it maybe actually helped you guys that everyone else was in the press and you guys could do your job quietly and as good as you have done?
Okay, there's many questions in one question. Hilton celebrated this year its 100th anniversary. On May 31st, it was 100 years that Conrad Hilton bought his very first hotel. The company has changed many times over during not only my career but previously, and the big step change happened in 2006 when Hilton Corporation and Hilton International joined. Consequently, Blackstone, a private equity firm, bought Hilton in 2007 for, at that time, their highest real estate transaction in history for $27 billion dollars. This has helped to export all the other Hilton brands around the world. And we are now counting 17 or 18 brands in 112 countries, around 5,700 hotels. We served 3 billion guests and about 2,500 more hotels in the pipeline. So behind Marriott and Starwood, we are certainly the number 2 with a tremendously large pipeline and is trying to establish our brands and our different brands in every corner around the world. So I cannot say if other companies were more in the front page than we were. All I can say that the share price, Hilton went public a few years ago, has developed very, very nicely. The company is doing extremely well. We're developing more and more brands for the next generations with a certain element of coolness, even in the luxury segment, and there's really no end in sight.
Yeah, give me one or two concrete things where you think where you would see a reason behind the success that you guys have had, because it's inevitable with the numbers that you just mentioned, the brands, and the steps that you've taken. Can you give me one or two things where you think, yeah, that's really something where I can tell we've developed and we've made progress, and I've seen in my career with Hilton things go from one place to the next?
I think credit must be given to the leadership of the company, to the executive board. They're located in our head office in McLean in Washington. On that executive team, there's not a single hotelier. They're all people that come from finance, from real estate development, and their vision and a strategy, and they really carried it out. And this was developing the different brands, having global heads of these different brands with a mission to be different and expand those brands. This is all driven by a single company culture, and this probably helps to align everything and everybody behind it and work towards our goals. And this is the most hospitable company in the world, not only for guests but even for employees. And this is our great drive these days.
With the trends in the market, with having more and more different brands and also consolidation, it becomes often and guests who book, trends are changing with the OTAs, for example, booking.com, and ratings take away maybe the importance of brands, or for many guests it becomes hard to differentiate what brand stands for what. Could you quickly tell more about for what is the purpose of Waldorf Astoria? For what do you stand worldwide? And then also for the different brands which you have in the Hilton
Okay,
portfolio.
my pleasure. The core brand was Hilton. Waldorf Astoria is the hotel that Conrad Hilton has called the greatest of them all. He bought it in 1949, if I remember correctly. And this hotel is such an icon in industry that it was decided to create a luxury brand called Waldorf Astoria in 2007. This was 12 years ago. We had one single Waldorf Astoria in New York. Today we have 32. In the next 2 years, 15 or 16 will be added. We have, and this is traditional classic 5-star plus luxury. Our second luxury brand is the Conrad brand. It's the hotel I managed in Tokyo. It's what we call smart luxury. Appeals to a slightly different segment in the market. Is probably a cooler hotel in terms of design, in terms of IT application, in terms of technology. And here as well, we're around 30 hotels with 15 more to come. So we will have a combined brand of 100 luxury hotels in the world. And there are very few other companies who can do the same. This is basically Starwood and Marriott. All other luxury companies, they're very segmented in different parts of the world. They do not have the geographical brand. Following that, we have another luxury brand. It's called Canopy. This is sort of a cool luxury brand. Doesn't exist very much. I think we have a couple of hotels. The first one was strange enough in Reykjavik in Iceland. We have now a few of those in America. Then we have Hilton, DoubleTree, and Embassy Suites. These are the brands, basically the business class, the engine of the company. And these are still today the full service hotels, followed by focused service hotels, the most profitable ones, as we all know. And this is the Hampton Inns, the Hilton Garden Inns. They're all over the world. Most of them are Hampton Inns in America. And they're real cash cows, and they help out the rapid growth in the world.
Looking at especially developing your Waldorf Astoria so fast and being in the Waldorf Astoria ourselves at the moment, what are the 3 USPs or things which you think Waldorf Astoria, you differentiate against all other competitive top luxury brands?
Okay, the brand pillars, as we call them, for Waldorf Astoria, is that we want to be in significant locations. In good locations, you will not find a Waldorf Astoria in a secondary location. So location has a huge importance. The second thing is that we try to create memorable experiences for our guests. So it's not only to check in and check out and don't see or don't hear anybody in between. So, and this is done by our personal concierge team. So before you arrive, you will get an email from our personal concierge team. They will ask you about preferences. We'll meet you upon arrival, and we'll be in touch with you to make sure that your stay is wonderful without any hiccups or misunderstandings, and we'll advise you in what you can do in the location where you are. If it's, everybody talks in this world about experiences, how best to experience a city, partly with experiences money can't buy, where connections have been created to create something really special.
Gregor, if we look at your career and the way you talk about a brand, you will forgive me for saying this, but you're probably one of the last of your kind, maybe in some sense, because you embody a brand. You've been for that brand your entire professional life. Listening to you talk, you know all the brands by heart. You know all the numbers by heart. Let me ask you about your take on future GMs and some of that topics in that direction. It's a growing trend, and we know each other in one way or another, also from a university perspective, and we've talked about these things together. Why is it so difficult today for companies to retain, quite frankly, people like you? Is it? I mean, we've talked enough on other episodes of the podcast that our generation, in the late 20s, is a little bit different and is a little bit less loyal and all of that, and work-life balance is more important than anything else to us, but that can't be the only thing. Give me your opinion on why maybe GMs in the future will not be 40 years with a company anymore, but will jump around brands and will will maybe follow very different ideology, if you so want, than what you have embodied in your career.
Okay. If I tell you that our executive board, they all come from international different companies, none of them from hotels.
Yeah.
So we're very, very happy to have what you call in Germany Quereinsteiger, people who join our company from outside the industry to bring a special expertise. Could it be in revenue management, could be in marketing, could be in social media, could be in architecture, in anything what you can't possibly describe. When we said a couple of years that customer is king, this was a very great statement. We say today that the employee is king. And we go way above, I believe, many other companies into whatever we can to be the best possible employer. Let me give you an example. Our company in America, Hilton, 5 years ago was not listed under the best place to work in America under the first 100. 4 years ago, we were number 8. 3 years ago, we were number 3, number 2, and last we were number 1 as the best place to work in America. Applying this to the Berlin-Brandenburg area where this hotel stands, we have been voted last year Hilton in this area, this is Hilton, Hampton Inn, and the Waldorf Astoria, and a great place to work, number 2 here in Berlin. This is where we're going. Our strategy is to give young people a perspective, to give training, to have them access to the Hilton University, to let them change jobs, and very, very important, giving a huge career opportunity to females, where we say you can combine a professional life with raising a family. We give you time off, we give you home office opportunities. We do nearly everything to motivate you to stay with us, and fantastic career prospects. I think we are different to other companies in that respect. We have some people who leave, they come back, they enjoy this very much, but generally it is very, very difficult to retain employees. And this is a trend of our times, where most industries, regardless if you're in IT, if you're in manufacturing, if you're in the car industry, everybody seems to complain that there are not enough qualified talent is available.
Yeah. Give me one or two tips to potential graduates of universities or people who are thinking about going down the route of becoming a GM. What are some of the qualities that you think a modern GM in a time now, and I'm sure you've changed as well. You're not the same GM you were, 10, 15 years ago. What are some of the qualities that a GM today must have in your opinion?
Okay, apart from the technical skills, which we assume they have, we went to a related school or education. It's leadership, how to communicate with people, how to take the experience of young people, combine it, what you have learned in your life, make the best out of it, the way to communicate, lead less, achieve more, give people at an early stage more responsibility and let them develop. Have flexible rules, have a flexible working environment, always with the aim to provide the best possible service and product for our customers. But I believe this makes quite a big difference today. Of course, you need to be IT savvy. You need to continuously educate yourself in technology, in social media, in how to promote your product, and how to research what the customer expects and deliver that. And do this in an elegant but less formal way than it has to be done. So if you do not understand that, then you will have a problem to be successful, I would think.
You just mentioned the developments of technology and also for you to always continuously learn. What are the key things which changed during your career as GM, in maybe the duties for you as a GM or your role? Were there some significant changes?
Well, first of all, we have continuous education. I was very recently in IMD in Lausanne, where we did a commercial behavior course, and there was nothing about hotels. There were only case studies from different companies, and we would look how we can apply their knowledge, their findings to our own industry. I had the opportunity to work at to be in the London Business School. I had the opportunity to be in Chicago University. So every 2-3 years, we are asked to participate in certain workshops in addition to company meetings where there's always a huge part in education, where we look at trends, what we need to do to stay up to date. But I believe technology, understanding the impact of technology and IT in marketing is something where a huge focus needs to be on, because you mentioned earlier on OTAs. If you don't understand, let's call it their game, you will not be in a position to compete, and there are competitors, because quite frankly, OTAs, they look at our product, they're making money on our back, and they're investing millions and hundreds of millions in technology. We all know that, but we paying a company-wide millions and millions in commissions, and we prefer to have this money for ourselves and give it back to the customer.
So you in your daily task nowadays much more controlling your rates, making sure that all the different channels are accurate. Do you still have time to also personally greet your guests and be as much in the house as I think back in the days it was much bigger role of being a host as a general manager, and much more now a finance-driven role?
Okay, it to some extent depends very much on the personality everybody has. Their rates, as a matter of fact, I don't control them at all. They're done in our revenue center in London, and this is done by a team of specialists. They look at historical data, they look at trends, they look at what's going on in town. They check on a daily basis the rates the competition is offering, and then we set our rates according to various considerations or adjust them. Okay, so this is done, and we have a daily conference call with that team in London who does that with our commercial team. The role of a general manager seems to be, or is still, in my view, very, very important to be having an ambassadorial role. You're the relationship to the outside world, to companies, to embassies, to organizations. They can support your business. Because still today, with all technology, nothing really can replace relationships. That is why I'm doing a lot of traveling. I represent my hotel at the Virtuoso Travel Mart in Travel Week in Las Vegas. I will be in ILTM in Cannes in 2 weeks' time. And I look around not only for talented people like I did when I visited Lausanne a couple of years ago, but always in touch with customers, being there, getting feedback. We have next week an advisory group of Hilton guests here in different industries to find out what else we can do to be better hosts, to serve better their needs. So the questioning is an ongoing thing of what we are doing.
I remember last time we saw each other, you very fondly talked about some of the things that are coming up for Hilton down the road. You've mentioned that there's some great hotels opening. I can't help but ask about the London property, because it's going to be a spectacular one, and you know there's been some press about it. And for those listeners to the podcast that have no idea what I'm talking about, would you give me a quick introduction as to what to expect from the London property?
Yes, there's a building called Admiralty Arch in London. This is opposite of Buckingham Palace. It is the connection between Buckingham Palace and the Admiralty Arch. This was the building where at one stage Winston Churchill had his office. It was a government building for many, many years, and it was bought by a Spanish investor, and Hilton has obtained the contract to brand the hotel they're building as a Waldorf Astoria. It is truly a magnificent building. We'll have 99 rooms. We'll have a private club. We'll have restaurants in a location that is second to none. On the other side of this Admiralty Arch is Trafalgar Square with the theater district that starts around the corner. It is expected to be completed in 2021. So with a little bit of luck, when the Queen will celebrate her 100th birthday, you should be able to sip a gin and tonic from your room and see her waving from the balcony.
Okay. Can you give me one or two other highlights, Gregor, that we can expect from Hilton in the next couple of years? More specifically, maybe from your your brand from the Waldorf Astoria. You know, what are some of the things that you have on the horizon that are coming up, and maybe one or two factors you want to focus on?
We will further improve and increase our presence in the resort market. We opened a magnificent Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives very recently.
Yeah.
And I invite you to look it up online. It is a very, very unique location where everything is bigger and better than what we have seen before. It is, I think, one of the leading top luxury hotels in the Maldives. We are making continuous progress in China with fantastic hotels in all different brands. We're expanding hugely in Africa, and of course the hotels we're building there have to meet the local needs, the local markets. We're very careful which brand goes in what location, and we just have completed a huge effort where we have 100 million Hilton Honors members. That's the loyalty program Hilton started many years ago. That means we have 100 million guests who are subscribed to Hilton. They get informed about product offerings we have, about new openings, about special deals they come around, and that is huge.
Tell me about that, because I mean we can't talk to someone from Hilton on the podcast and not talk about Hilton Honors. That would be you know, not a good thing to do. What's the success story behind it? Because it's a program that whenever, you know, whatever panel, whatever event, whatever you go to, and if membership programs are a topic, you know, it's Hilton Honors is usually right up there in the mix and in the discussion. Give me an idea of why, in your opinion, and no doubt you've looked at all the new or all the other ones. You know, Starwood Preferred Guest was great, no doubt, at the time. It's Bonvoy now with Marriott. But why is Hilton Honors such a standout membership program?
I think it was when it was relaunched in 1997. Already 10 years before both Hilton companies merged, the presidents of both companies have agreed to create one great program for our guests, for our travelers, and the intention was always to create the best in the industry. And it won many awards, and I think till very recently it was probably the very best. I wouldn't say there's another program better now, I cannot judge that, but probably other companies have caught up. You get different levels of loyalty with different benefits. You were always able to exchange points with a partner, with a friend. You can double dip. That means you can get points in there with the airline, preferred airline, or in hotels. This was a novelty in the market. And of course, we were a company that encouraged you to use your points in our own hotels, in our own resorts. So if you're a business traveler, you're traveling the whole year in different parts of the world, and you collect points, you have then the opportunity to take your family for leisure time somewhere else, and it's basically paid for.
Do you think also increasing the amount of properties you have worldwide is one of the key factors to also drive the Hilton Honors program, or is it the new technology and the whole mobile aspects in the room, connected rooms, which are the key driver, or is it your strong brand positioning?
It's a brand positioning. It's our travelers, our Hilton Honors members know where Hilton Honors is available. They can expect a certain standard. Yes, the more international you are, I think I mentioned earlier, 114 countries we are present, and this seems to increase nearly daily. Last year we opened every day one hotel. So it gives our travelers more opportunities to earn miles or to spend miles. And if we are not in a particular location, the guest might go somewhere else and stay with a competitor.
Yeah. Going back to your own career and your 40 years at Hilton, have you always been in the hotel industry? Was it always a dream for you to lead one of the flagship properties of a big brand, or was that something which evolved over time? What were your, let's say, the initial goals and vision when starting your career?
I started in the accounting department in Brussels. Then 2 years later, had the luck to have a conversation with my general manager, who said that I look more to be successful in management than in accounting. And I thought it was a very grateful tip. I did
Does the hotel still exist, Gregor?
Yeah, it does. Okay. It was a corporate food and beverage management training. and then made my career through different positions with growing responsibilities in food and beverage. And was very, very lucky to be at the right time at the right place. Even when I considered sometimes to leave the company to go somewhere else, that an offer within my own company came up when I thought, okay, I'll do this one, and in 2 years I see what else comes up. You really don't know where you end up. The only thing what you know is if you leave a place, it's very unlikely that you will return to the same place. I couldn't think 10 years ago that it will ever be in Berlin. It worked out always very, very nice for me. And I was lucky enough to live in one of the most exciting places in the world, and would do exactly the same again.
So the spontaneity and leaving, and because being a GM, you need to.
It is a never-ending hunger and curiosity that drives you. You need probably a competitive streak that you want to be number one. You need to have the pride and the will to identify with your product. That's why I wouldn't probably enjoy very much to work in a let's say focus service hotel, and something you can be proud of, something you can build up, something that you can call your own, and that's what I've always enjoyed.
You mentioned before that you loved the challenge coming to Berlin. Exactly, this part of Berlin was definitely not the place to go. The Waldorf Astoria was quite new. You've been now here for several years. What are your goals with Berlin, or do you want to stay here longer, or do you want to still reach certain goals here with this property? Or
I have no intentions to move. This answers one question, because Berlin really combines ingredients from many other capitals in the world. It's a fantastic place to live. My goal is, with my team, not necessarily to be the best hotel, because it becomes very subjective, but be most people's favorite hotel. And if we achieve that, then we can be very proud. When I arrived here 6 years ago and I introduced myself to my immediate competitors, the conversation usually ended, well, welcome to Berlin and good luck with the location. I think now all these people, they will think, something went wrong, because our guests think that we have a fantastic location in the south, in the heart of the city west, and it really is recognized by all our guests, and they're very, very happy here. So if we become everybody's favorite hotel, then I'm very happy with that.
Gregor, I can't, and when we talked about the episode with you, we all agreed that this was the one thing we had to ask a guy who's been in the industry for 40 years. Give us at least one story where you thought to yourself, what the hell just happened? You've been in the industry for 40 years. It can be an employee story, a guest story. I realize you're not going to mention names or the location, and that's absolutely fine, because obviously we don't want to embarrass someone. But someone with your experience, there must have been a lot of moments where you thought to yourselves, "Oh my God, what did I just see, or what just happened?" Can you share one or two stories with us? Because someone with your experience must have stories.
Yes, I can. One story comes to mind. We were lucky enough to host a head of state from Israel in this hotel a few years ago, and not only did we know what we are getting ourselves into in terms of security meetings and briefings and so on, but once and we knew that 500 meters around the hotel, all the streets will be closed off. But once I saw a tank standing in front of the Zoopalast, that's the cinema, with sharpshooters on every single roof, and the building behind us, they were thought, this I really did not expect. It goes to that extent. And that head of state went through all the security precautions, went out for dinner in the evening, and then returned back in our bar unannounced, to the dismay of his security team. Started eating there and drinking and having a relaxing time with some colleagues, and it was very, very surprising, because we thought every single step would be watched by him.
Yeah. Gregor, before we come to the last three questions that we ask everyone on the show, let me ask one more thing. If you look at the industry kind of as a whole, and you know where it stands, there's a lot of things that influence it. We've talked about some of them, and some of them, like sustainability and the whole tech trends and so on and so forth. If you were to describe to someone who's got nothing to do with the industry, who's a guest maybe from manufacturing or whatever, if you were to describe the hospitality business the way it is today compared to when you first started, as you said, 40 years ago, can you give me a quick comparison? Well, I know realize it's probably difficult to do it quickly, but a comparison in 2 or 3 sentences of how it's changed.
The core hasn't changed because we are hospitality. We want to welcome people. What has really changed is technology, what I mentioned early on. I still believe it's tremendously exciting industry where there's no day the same. We have opportunities for talents of every single knowledge and industry. If you're in accounting, in sales, in marketing, in IT, in operations, in management, in HR, in development, huge has changed in human resources development and training and opportunities. So all in all, I find it still a tremendously exciting industry where you can have very, very early a good level of responsibility and make a decent living.
Here you go. Thank you very much. Allow me 3 short questions with the request for short answers.
All right.
The first question is a very easy one, and I think I know your answer already. My favorite thing about hospitality is?
The guest.
Okay. The last leisure trip, so you privately, that I took was to?
Abu Dhabi.
And my favorite part about that trip was?
The incredible mosque we saw there in Abu Dhabi that was built a couple of years by Italians.
Okay.
I mean, it's something you have to see to believe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the last question is, the next big trend in hospitality will be, in your opinion?
It has to be technology and innovation. It's difficult to see and difficult to forget there's still humans are living in our hotels, but technology will continue with artificial intelligence to make the stays even more customs made than they are till today.
Gregor, thank you very much. It's been great.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
Great.
That's it for this episode, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. As always, don't forget to check out what there is to know about Smack at smack.media or on our YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook accounts. We'll see you next time.